Now, passing your driving test has always been something of a nerve-wracking experience. But how much more of an ordeal is it when you have to travel long distances to even get a test? Learner drivers from Reading have been booking tests as far away as Scotland in an attempt to get around backlogs at their own test centre. The agency running tests for the government says it's been hit by industrial action and an increase in demand for tests. But instructors say there's a particular problem in Reading after the number of examiners fell from 14 to just 4. Joe Campbell has the story.
The end of a testing road in Reading, and for some the good news is they've passed.
Awesome! Yeah, I'm happy.
But for many learner drivers, the verdict is the testing system has failed. The learner in this car passed his theory exam just weeks after turning 17. But when it came to booking the practical test,
I had to get up at 6 o'clock on a Monday morning to try and get a test, and I managed to get one for February, but it's in Oxford. It just adds extra complications, like having it down the road makes it so much easier because I know what I'm doing, where I'm going.
Really good lesson, wasn't it, eh?
Yeah.
It's a familiar story for his instructor, who says the 4 examiners in Reading isn't enough. While their employer, the DVSA, says it's recruiting more, the pay of around £28,000 wasn't enough to tempt her.
You can go and work in McDonald's and get paid that, and you don't have to have the stress of sitting in a car that maybe not dual controlled, and this person sat next to you and you don't know what they've done driving or anything, and you've got to deal with it. And people get violent, people get aggressive with them. It's not an easy job.
The agency also says the desire to book tests well in advance is in part to blame for what's happening. People who learn to drive here on the streets in Reading now regularly sit their tests in Basingstoke or Farnborough. And the BBC has learned of one student who was prepared to take a ferry across the Solent to take their test on the Isle of Wight. Another who travelled all the way to Widnes in Cheshire. And the most extreme case, somebody who booked their test in Glasgow in Scotland.
It's absolutely ridiculous. The cost involved and the disruption is absolutely enormous, and local people simply shouldn't have to travel that far to take a driving test.
Mel here's already forked out for trips to Winchester ahead of her eldest daughter's retest there today. But a real concern is what's happening to teenagers caught up in the system.
When I was younger, you failed your test, you booked another one. Get the momentum going, because the youngsters are learning to drive. Their confidence is going massively. I've seen it on my children and other friends who have got children. It's just really, really sad time.
The agency says it's got staff working overtime and is switching them from backroom jobs to boost the number of tests. But so far those changes seem to have had little effect. Joe Campbell, BBC South Today.
Well, let's get a bit more on this. I'm joined by our transport correspondent, Paul Clifton. Paul, how widespread is this problem?
Joe, I've taught hundreds of young people to drive through a road safety charity for teenagers called the Under 17 Car Club. So I've seen many cases of learner drivers struggling to book tests, and I've encouraged them to travel anywhere in the country to get a slot. The average wait from booking a driving test to actually taking that test is 24 weeks, according to the AA. That compares with 6 weeks before the pandemic. And the government agency which runs testing said it is taking all measures we can to reduce driving test waiting times, which includes recruiting nearly 500 new examiners. It said the waiting times have increased due to greater demand, to civil service strikes, and to students changing their booking behaviour because of the decrease in availability. So they're booking tests before they know whether they're ready to pass or not. And a number of smaller driving test centres have also closed in recent years. Now, let me give you another view. I know a young driver from Bournemouth who passed her test over the summer. Olivia took her theory test at 8 o'clock on the morning of her 17th birthday and then immediately went looking for a driving test slot anywhere in the country. She found one in Poole, and at age 17 and 2 days, she passed first time. Now, Olivia's very much the exception, but the point is it can still be done.
Olivia sounds like a very switched on young lady. Thank you very much, Paul.